Is Benjamin Netanyahu continuing the war against Iran despite Israel running out of air defense missiles? Israeli defense forces confess it is not shooting down all incoming Iranian missiles, raising concerns. Are Israeli citizens being left unguarded as Iran continues to unleash more and more attack waves at Israel? At least 66 missile salvos have been fired so far by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps at Israel and US assets. The Israeli military said on March 19 that the Air Force is deliberately choosing not to shoot down some incoming Iranian missiles, reflecting a calculated decision about how best to manage Israel's air defense resources during the war. Officials cited by the Times of Israel said the Israeli Air Force is conserving its interceptor stockpile, especially in situations where interception may be less necessary or less efficient. According to that report, the military is in some cases choosing not to intercept missiles carrying cluster warheads, even though those weapons can scatter multiple explosive bomblets over a broad area. Cluster warheads break apart in the air and release smaller bomblets over wide radius, making interception more difficult because the threat effectively multiplies once the missile opens up. Officials said these cluster munitions are less likely to cause major casualties if civilians are inside shelters, even though they can still inflict damage above ground. Israeli military officials said, and I quote, "Israeli Air Force chooses not to shoot down all or some of the bomblets to conserve its stockpile of short-range interceptors." Israeli Air Force was not sparing any effort to defend Israeli civilians, and would work to intercept any threat, but stressed that the bomblets are almost certain not to cause any harm to civilians if they are sheltering in a protected space. Unquote. Since the war started on February 28, Iran has fired roughly 300 ballistic missiles at Israel according to the IDF, although your line says over 350 and that higher number is not confirmed in the cited reporting here. Israeli officials say an increasing share of those missiles are carrying cluster bomb warheads, which can cause more indiscriminate damage across residential and open areas. This decision not to intercept every such missile comes amid repeated reporting and debate over interceptor availability, even though the IDF has publicly denied that it faces an outright shortage. The Times of Israel reported at least 9 people were killed in Iran strikes in Israel overall and separate cluster munition casualties in specific incidents. Cluster bomb warheads open while descending and can scatter dozens of smaller munitions, with the Times of Israel reporting that they spread submunitions rather than striking as one single warhead. Those smaller bomblets carry several kilograms of explosives and can spread across a radius of around 10 kilometers, creating danger over a much wider area than a conventional single-impact missile. These fragments can cause major property damage on the surface, but officials say they do not penetrate properly built bomb shelters, which is why civilian protection guidance remains centered on reaching shelter quickly. To intercept missiles carrying cluster warheads, the IDF has to rely on long-range systems such as Arrow before the warhead opens, because interception becomes much more complicated after separation. Once such missiles split apart, shorter-range systems like Iron Dome and David Sling may then be needed to deal with the individual bomblets, further complicating Israel's layered defense effort. Israel has reported over 100 impact incidents with significant damage since the war began. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a press conference on March 19 amid persistent death rumors and intense public scrutiny during the war. In that briefing, Netanyahu spoke about the threat posed by Iran's ballistic missile program and said Israel's goal includes removing the missile threat before it becomes even harder to stop.
The death cult in Iran is trying to blackmail the world by closing a key international maritime route, the Straits of Hormuz. It won't work. Israel is helping in its own way, and intel and other means, the American effort to open the Straits of Hormuz, rather. But I want to ask you to imagine how the Ayatollah regime would be able to blackmail the entire world if they had ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads. Just imagine what they would do. Look at what they're doing now and imagine what they would do if they had ballistic missiles, international range ballistic missiles, and nuclear-tipped warheads. Just imagine what a great threat that would be. So today, Israel and the United States are protecting America, Israel, the entire Middle East, but I venture to say the entire world. Despite the fake news that is unfortunately being spread since the start of the war 20 days ago, we are winning and Iran is being decimated. Iran's missile and drone arsenal is being massively degraded and will be destroyed. Hundreds of their launchers have been destroyed. Their stockpiles of missiles are being hit hard, and so are the industries that produce them. That's important. In Rising Line, we destroyed missiles and we destroyed a lot of the nuclear infrastructure. But what we're destroying now are the factories that produce the components to make these missiles and to make the nuclear weapons that they're trying to produce. We're wiping out their industrial base in a way that we didn't do before. Iran's air defenses have been rendered useless. Their navy is lying at the bottom of the sea. Today we hit the other part of their navy in the Caspian Sea. Their air force is nearly destroyed. Iran's command and control structure is in utter chaos. And I can tell you that there's still more work to do, and we're going to do it. And I want to close these opening remarks with one other fake news, and that is that Israel somehow dragged the U.S. into a conflict with Iran. Does anyone really think that someone can tell President Trump what to do? Come on. President Trump always makes his decisions on what he thinks is good for America, and may I add, I think what is also good for future generations. The world owes a debt of deep indebtedness to President Trump for leading this effort to safeguard our future. You want a transitional leader that will have a transition. You don't want to replace one Ayatollah with another. You don't want to replace Hitler with Himmler. So I think the question is, will the conditions be created for such a change? I think it's too early to say. And I think in the final account, as I said, it's up to the Iranian people to show that, to choose the moment and to rise to the moment. We can create the conditions, but they have to, they have to exploit those conditions at a certain point. It is often said that you can't do revolutions from the air. That is true. You can't do it only from the air. You can do a lot of things from the air, and we're doing, but there has to be a ground component as well. There are many possibilities for this ground component, and I take the liberty of not sharing with you all those possibilities. I think that those are goals that are achievable, but I'm not going to put a schedule or a stopwatch on it. I think we have goals that have to be achieved, and we're not counting the days. But I will say this canard that we dragged the United States into it is not just a canard, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I think President Trump said it best, and I said it as well many times. There's always a danger in acting. But in conditions of existential threats, there's a much greater danger in not acting. Oh, but they don't have it yet. That's what people said. Right, let's wait. Well, just let them do it, just wait and let them do it. You won't be able to do it. It's the last moment. No, it takes a little time. I mean, you had a few months to prevent them from doing it and to just decimate these industries and perhaps achieve this transitional government in Iran. So you'd sit back and you say, well, it's not going to happen in the next Thursday, so let's not act. I tell you that there's enormous risk in not acting, much greater risk than acting. And if you think that the oil markets are in trouble today, think of Iran with nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them. Then think of the blackmail that then once we achieve our goals, then I have argued, I think, and Americans understand this very well because we're real partners. I think that what has to be done is to have alternative routes. Instead of going through the choke points of the Hormuz Straits and the Bab el-Mandeb Straits in order to have the flow of oil, just have oil pipelines, gas pipelines going west through the Arabian Peninsula, right up to Israel, right up to our Mediterranean ports, and you've just done away with the choke points for forever. That is definitely possible. So I see that as a real change that will follow this war. But I also see this war ending a lot faster than people think. I think you have to, in war, you have to grit your teeth. Number one, Israel acted alone against the Slawiya gas compound. Fact number two, President Trump asked us to hold off on future attacks, and we're holding out. What do we see? What happens if are there any signs that the Iranian regime is cracking? A lot of signs. A lot of signs. I wish I could divulge all of them, but I see that. But will I tell you, will I commit right now that it's going to collapse? I can tell you that we're working to create the conditions for it to collapse. But it may survive, it may not. If it survives, it'll be a lot weaker. There's no comparison. It'll be at its weakest point, shorn of industries that it built over decades, death industries, shorn of many other capabilities that they have, and equipped with the experience, with the knowledge that if they try it again, they'll be hit again even harder. I'm not sure who's running Iran right now. Mujtaba, the replacement Ayatollah, has not shown his face. Have you seen him? We haven't. And we can't vouch exactly what is happening there. There is a cloud here that's not clear. What we see is that there's a lot of tensions inside the people who are edging for the top. It's not a uniform position. You see that sometimes with the contradictory orders that are given. You know, they do one thing and then they withdraw it and so on. I think it's important that they know that if they think they're going to target the world, target the President of the United States and so on, they themselves are being targeted. That creates a lot of uncertainty. We've found that can have an effect. The removal of Nasrallah has never really been replaced, because some people are not replaceable. I think the authority and the hold that Khamenei has had is not going to be translated to anyone, not to Mujtaba if he's there, and not to anyone else. But I think this is part of the effort to crack the regime. It's not going to happen in one day. We're 20 days into this war. Yes, we're seeing cracks. We're seeing cracks, and we're trying to propagate them as fast as we can. He's the leader. I'm, his ally. America is the leader. Israel is, as the National Security Memorandum described us, I think a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I think, something like that. They called Israel the model ally. That's how they call it, the model ally. It's not a superpower, but America is seeking around the world, and you hear it from the speeches of President Trump and others in the administration. They say, where are you? We've helped you all these years. Where are you when we're doing something that is as important, at least as important for you as it is important for us? And yet one country is there, and against all the vilifications that are leveled at Israel, Israel is sponging off America and all that.